Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. Tonight is October, I just got a pop-up saying the meeting was being recorded. I kind of know that. I'm the one who started it. Tonight is November 18th of 2021, and we are 1 week ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm going to be your Zoom coordinator tonight. My name is Mark Schroeder. We've taken care of all assignments. We have one speaker tonight, which is actually going to be me, and our evaluator has the evaluation form. Rob Giles is our backup Zoom person tonight. So if there's any issues that you're having with Zoom and I'm not available, particularly while I'm speaking, go ahead and grab Rob. We are recording, of course, as you've already noticed. Yeah, grab Rob. Not going to go through, we've got a lot of senior people here, so I'm not going to go through all the navigation. Just a usual reminder, try to keep yourself on mute if there's a lot of noise in the background in particular. You always have the ability to choose the speaker or gallery view. We're small enough tonight that if you choose the gallery view, you'll be able to see pretty much everybody, I think. So you'll always have your timer on the screen. That's one alternative as opposed to pinning your timer tonight, for sure. A quick share to show you our agenda. As usual, our agenda is on DallasSocialToastmasters.com. The third column is the column intended for our members, and within it is a link right at the top of that section called Current Agenda. When you click on the current agenda, if I can keep the other thing off of my tabs, there we go, you will click over to our agenda for this evening. From this, you will notice that we have one speaker tonight, which is me, Rob Giles, who's kind of doing at least double. Let me see how many times. Okay, he's doing quadruple duty tonight. So he's going to be busy, but at least one of them is a backup. At this point, I will go ahead and turn the meeting over to Rob Giles as our invocation and pledge to get us started. Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zoom facilitator. Tonight, we are going to do the pledge. I do have a flag. I'm going to slide it over in just a moment. You are welcome to participate if you are so inclined. If you are not so inclined, then that's okay as well. So please join me, if you will, in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I also want to mention one thing before I hand off to our Toastmaster. Thanksgiving is a national holiday in the United States, but the term itself, Thanksgiving, is something that can be had and experienced and expressed by everybody across the world. And the more that we do it, the more that we show gratitude, the more that it's going to improve our lives, our outlook, how we view other people, and it's going to just raise us up. So I encourage you throughout this meeting and throughout the next week or so to try to incorporate a little bit more gratitude and thank people and thank the Lord for all the things that you have in your life that are good. Look at bad experiences and maybe try to look at them in a different way. Find something positive about them. Be thankful for those things. At this point, I will hand over the meeting to our Toastmaster for this evening. Please help me to welcome Innovative Planner Level 1, Mr. Justin Faust.
Thank you, Rob Giles. Yes, Thanksgiving, meaning thanks for giving, and it's a national holiday where families come together and celebrate together. Let me recognize our distinguished guest. We have none. Let's move on. So our first person I'd like to recognize is the timer and grammarian, which is Mark Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight, as timer, I'm going to keep track of the various times, such as roughly a 5 to 7 minute time frame for the speech tonight, a 1 to maximum 2 minutes and 30 seconds for the table topics, and a minimum 2 minutes to 3 minutes and 30 seconds for the speech evaluator I will display a green card once the speaker has met the minimum time. Yellow once the speaker has hit the midpoint between minimum and maximum. And then at the maximum time, I'll hold up the red card. And at that point, there will be a brief 30-second grace period. I'll keep track of the times and make a report when called upon. And I'm also grammarian. I'm going to introduce the word of the day. Now, I just scribbled this out a few minutes ago, so I'll also put it into the chat. Gregarious. And this is something that hopefully you are in the holiday season, going to parties, family gatherings. You want to be hopefully outgoing, sociable, and gregarious. Good thing to be. Unless maybe you've been drinking too much and you're telling the same jokes time after time. Maybe a little too much gregarious for some people, but most of the time that's a very good word. You will need to use this during table topics in order to win the competition. And you're encouraged to use it as much as you can work it into your discussions during the course of the evening. And I will also be listening for any colorful uses of the English language, any great phrases or great words that you come up with. And I'll make a report again when called upon during the course of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark Sims. Now let's go to our vote counter. Vote counter will be John Bessel.
Thank you, Justin. Fellow Toastmasters, I am going to be the vote counter tonight, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, counting votes. I won't be casting a vote myself except in a tie, which I will not announce. But in different portions of the meeting, we will have a call to vote. And tonight, since we only have one speaker and one evaluator, we'll only vote for table topics and for big three. So after those events, you'll be called upon to vote, and you will send me a private chat on who you thought did the best job during table topics and who you thought did the best job of our big three tonight. And I will count the votes and present them at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, John. Now let's move on to our counter, Madeline.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, my duty as the ah counter is to listen carefully for verbal distractions such as you know, and so, but, and any other filler words or sounds. I will also keep track of repeated words like the, and I. Lastly, I will keep track of long pregnant pauses when they are distracting. Normally, when I hear these crutch words, I would use the clicker to notify the speaker. However, during these virtual times, not only will I not click during the prepared speeches, I will not click during the entire meeting. I will, however, keep track of the number of these types of speaking errors in writing for each person that speaks. The big three: prepared speakers, table topic contestants, evaluators, and duty holders. And I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator toward the end of the meeting. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madeline. Last but not least, our posture monitor, Rob Giles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. As the posture monitor, I will be on the lookout for any posture that may be distracting to what you're trying to present. Also, I'll be looking for gestures that may enhance your speech and that may add to your speech to take it up to the next level. So think about those things when you're speaking. I will keep notes throughout the meeting, and I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator toward the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Yes, thank you, Rob. The theme for tonight is Thanksgiving dinner. We all love it. We all enjoy meeting up with our families and eating the great food. But let me go into more details about it. Let me share something with about Thanksgiving with you guys that you may not know. This is, we enjoy the food, right? The turkey, of course, the pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, the macaroni and cheese, the greens, the stuffing or dressing, the pecan pie, the gravy. It's really good to us. I enjoy it. The corn on the cob, the cornbread, the green bean casserole, the cranberry sauce is delicious. But you might wonder, where did these foods come from? And why do we eat these on Thanksgiving? Well, what you may not know is turkeys are actually indigenous to North America. And when the Pilgrims first came here, that was one of the first foods they ate in Massachusetts. As you can see, it's in all over the Eastern coast, in the Midwest as well. There's turkeys native to Mexico. Turkeys were first domesticated in Mexico about 2,000 years ago. The Native Americans figured if they captured these turkeys and bred them, it would be a lot easier to actually eat them than catching them wildly. And that's what they did. Fun fact, the founding father, Ben Franklin, actually wanted turkey to be our national bird instead of the bald eagle. But luckily our founding fathers decided not to go through with that. Also, turkeys do not come from the country of Turkey. They're native to North America, just so you know. More foods that we eat during Thanksgiving are native to the Americas. Corn, of course, maize, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and squash. We all love cornbread. We all love potato salad. Of course, tomatoes are in a bunch of food that we eat. Sweet potato pie, pumpkin pie, and squash. But what you did know is all corn arose from a single domesticated plant, a grass, a wild grass in Mexico, about 9,000 years ago. Corn does not grow naturally. If humans stop planting corn, in 100 years, corn would completely disappear from the earth. It's a completely domesticated plant. It does not grow naturally. And one other fun fact is dressing or stuffing. This is pretty true, regional or cultural. I grew up calling it dressing, but you may call it stuffing. It depends on which region you come from, your family and your origin, but you know, no matter what you call it, eat it during Thanksgiving. Okay, that's all for me about Thanksgiving dinner. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you eat a lot. I know I will. And we will go into our first speaker, our evaluator.
Lee King.
Oh, Lee King. Okay, sorry. Lee King is our the evaluator. Lee King.
Yes, Mark will be working on the project using descriptive language. His particular purpose is for, during this project, for the member to practice writing a speech with an emphasis on adding language to increase interest and impact. His time is 5 to 7 minutes.
A redirect, the time is going to be 6 to 8 tonight.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, it's fine.
What's the name of the speech?
The name of the speech is Herding Cats, into the same room.
Okay. Herding cats into the same room. Mark Schroeder, herding cats into the same room.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm going to go through some information that comes from Jackson Galaxy, who I consider to be a cat whisperer. And a lot of it is in his book, Total Cat Mojo, but it's on how to herd cats into the same room. A lot of people believe that you can just take cats and put them together and they'll work it out, and they may. One of them may lose an eye in the process, which is not what you want as a desirable outcome, but they will work it out. So I'm going to talk about some of the steps that Jackson Galaxy recommends. These are tried and true principles to get cats to accept each other when one is in a house and you're trying to bring a new cat in. The first step is some prep that you have to do. The prep you have to do is scheduling meals and having what's called a base camp. Let's talk about scheduling meals first. That means that you're not doing any free feeding. Free feeding is when you just put out a bowl of food and let them eat whenever they can and whenever they feel like it. You have to get the existing cat in the house on a schedule so that you feed them so many times a day at certain times a day. And that they have to get used to that before you bring in the new cat. This entire thing is precipitated on that. That's a given. You have to do that first. The second is you have to create a separate base camp. Now, we all have a base camp in Toastmasters, but this is a little different. This is going to be a separate room or isolation area that accomplishes a mandatory isolation phase for the cats as you bring them in. And in that room, you want to have some scent soakers. Cats are very good at leaving scent all over everything, rubbing against everything. So you want towels, you want bedding, you want the kind of things that cats will rub on and leave their scent, because that's important. Cats recognize and get used to each other through scent. The other rule during this period is no peeking. The cats should not see each other. You have to prevent that from happening. During this early period, what you do is called site swapping. So you carry the newcomer out of his base camp. When you bring him in, you put him in the base camp and you shut the door and you leave them there so that they don't see each other. But when you do site swapping, you carry the newcomer out of the base camp, you put him in a bathroom or something, and you shut the door. And then you let the resident cat, the original cat, walk into where the newcomer's base camp has been set up and shut the door there. You allow the newcomer then to explore the rest of the home. And you rinse and repeat. You do this a bunch of times. What this does is it basically accustoms each cat to the other cat's scent, because the resident has it in the rest of the house. The newcomer left it in the base camp. And in fact, they end up, as they rub on each other's parts and equipment and towels and everything, they end up doing scent sharing. And this is critical to having everything work out. You also do other side of the door feeding rituals, which basically means that you leave that door shut and you start with the bowls a long distance away between the two doors, and you slowly bring them back together over time so that they get a little more accustomed. They know that there's another cat in the house. They recognize that there's something there, but they can't see, maybe can smell, but so that it doesn't create too much anxiety. Okay, so that's step one. And they still have not seen each other at this point. Just keep site swapping and doing the food ritual. The second step is giving them visual access to each other. It's basically very, very similar, except you allow them to start seeing each other. But you put, instead of a closed door, you put something like a grate or a pet gate, something that they can't get over, can't get through, can't bust through. And ideally, something that you can hang like a towel or a blanket or something over to eliminate the visual until you gradually raise the curtain up so that you can allow them to start to see each other slowly over time. That is what you want for this first step too. And as you do this, take those two bowls, put them way far apart again, and then start to bring them back in. So they start far apart with a little bit of vision of each other. You start raising the curtain, bringing things back together until you can get them closer together and still have some of the curtain up so that they can actually see each other. And hopefully everything is still going really, really well. This gets you to the third step. And the third step, yeah, it's going to get called eat, play, love. The goal is to put both cats into a room together for an increasing amount of time. And you, as the moderator of this, get to figure out exactly when that's going to happen, when the time is over, because you've got to be very much aware and watching what's going on. When they're in a shared space together, give them something to do. They have to have something to do, something to focus on, because guess what? If they don't have something to focus on, they're going to focus on each other. That's not what you want. You don't want the other cat to be the something to do. So you have to watch for stare downs, you have to watch for trouble, and you have to react quickly if you see anything that looks like it's going to be a fight. Couple of notes, prep, again, that you have to take care of. First, the overs and unders. Also, and outs. So you have to look for ways that the cats are going to be able to hide. You would be surprised at how small a space a cat can get in, under a bed, under furniture. And during a fight, they will. You want to make sure that there's no place for them to get under. You want to make sure there's no way for them to get out so that you end up having to chase them while they're chasing each other. Make sure that they can't get out of the room. You also want to have some side blockers ready. And by side blockers, I mean something large enough that you can actually place it physically between the two cats to block one's view of the other, because it's the sight that causes the problem in the stare downs. You want to prevent that. You want to be able to have something that you can drop in front of them, in between them very, very quickly, something you don't have to bend over to do. And the third part, last resort is a removal option. That might be something like a blanket that you can throw over one of them, grab it, take it outside to another room. So be prepared with all of those. Watch for signs of trouble. The way you introduce them into the space, you're better off if you have a partner helping you. I'll tell you that for sure, because you want to start with one cat in the room that you have fully engaged, maybe with treats, maybe with a toy. Ideally, you have someone else bring the other cat into the same room and immediately do the same thing with that cat. Engage that cat so that they both have something to do that does not involve each other. And you keep that rhythm going, maintaining the play as long as you can maintain the play without a fight. You decide when to end the session before the cats decide to end it for you. That's the important part. Watch for that tension between them, because it's going to be there. The goal is to make that tension take longer and longer so that they can stay together for increasing amounts of time without an issue. But when it's over, it's over. Separate them. You're done. And finally, as the last part of this, you want to start doing the last part is mealtime so far has gone really well. They've been able to see each other through the grate. Break down even the gate barrier during mealtime. If you make it that far and you start having either very few fights or very little negative interaction between them, you are home free. The one thing that I can't tell you the time frames necessarily, because it's going to vary with each set of animals, but those are the ways that we recommend, the 3 steps to introduce 2 cats into the same room successfully without a problem. First, do your prep. Second, give them visual access to each other. And finally, eat, play, love in the same room. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark Schroeder. Please send any comments to Mark Schroeder about his speech. Send them comments directly. So let's go to Timer's report. Mark Sims, did Mark Schroeder qualify on time?
Yes, he did. It was 8 minutes, 20 seconds, so he was within the 30-second grace period.
Great job, Mark. So I want to do something a bit interactive as the Toastmaster. This is a special week, being the week before Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving, although it's about food and family, it's something more. It's about giving back and being thankful. So I'm gonna go around and ask you to share one thing you're thankful for. And I'll start with Madeline. What are you thankful for?
I'm sorry, did you ask me? I apologize.
No, ask Madeline.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I am thankful for a lot of things. I'll focus on one for now. I'll start with my health, especially with COVID and everything going on. It's been extremely busy, and sometimes it's easy for me to forget how great it is to be in good health. And so I am perpetually thankful for that. I was able to go to a work happy hour last night. It was a lot of gregarious people after a couple drinks.
That's good, Mel. I'm sorry, this is not the topic. I was just sharing like one thing, and then
Okay,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah, but that's good though. Good help. That's great. Just share one thing and let you know. That was great though. So Lee King, what's one thing you're thankful for?
I would just say that I am most thankful for the opportunity to be able to still get together with people and do things through Zoom or in person. I feel like we're able to stay more connected, especially as COVID is easing up on us.
Thank you, Lee King. Rob, what's one thing you're thankful for?
I'm thankful for so many things, but one thing that I've been recently thinking about that I'm thankful for is my job, which I didn't have for almost 18 months. And I'm really, really thankful that I am employed, and I look at it a lot differently than I did prior to the pandemic. So perspective is a great thing. Take advantage of it when you can.
So true, Rob, so true. Mark Schroeder, what's one thing you're thankful for?
Well, at this point, I don't know that I can even pick one, but I've got some of the similar ones to other people. Health, still having a job because I got laid off and managed to get back, claw my way back into the company with the same amount of seniority time. And the ability to get out and actually do some things like the beer fest this last weekend, all three.
Good reasons, very good reasons. Mark Sims, what's one thing you're thankful for?
Well, likewise, health, and then also the ability this year to travel. I was able to take a couple of vacations this year, see some faraway places, and as always enjoy the contrast between life in other states and here.
Thank you, Mark Sims. Last but not least, of course, John Vessels, what's one thing you're thankful for?
Well, all the previous mentioned things, and I guess the one thing I'm most thankful for is that I still had a job all the way through COVID. So that kept me in line and not struggling, not quit.
Thank you, John. I'm also very thankful for what everyone said, and my job, of course, and my family, my health, and really getting to meet you guys in Toastmasters, and really getting to improve myself overall as a human being and as a speaker. I really enjoyed the time we spent together, and I'm just thankful and grateful for the opportunity to be here. Now let's move on to table topics, and it will be run by Rob Giles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Table Topics, as you know, is here to help you to learn how to speak off the cuff, impromptu, extemporaneously. And it's things that can help us not just in the workplace or in interviews, but also if we're going to be a little bit more gregarious in a social environment. If we go to parties, we may be stuck in a corner and be forced to be gregarious. So Table Topics is a great thing. Again, you got to reach 1 minute. You can't go more than 2.5 minutes. So keep that in mind. And then use the word of the day. You'll be very thankful if you do. Our theme is Thanksgiving, right? So, or Thanksgiving dinner specifically. Back in 1621, the Plymouth colonists and the Wampanoag shared the first autumn harvest feast. And that followed with annual feasts of the same type of thing for over 2 centuries. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, declared Thanksgiving to be a national holiday. So it was a big thing, and I'm not sure exactly his motivation at that time, but perhaps to bring some thankfulness in a time of trouble and a time of hardship. But Thanksgiving dinner is something that I really cherish, and it is because of family, but it's also because of the food. I used to think of Thanksgiving as just the 3 F's: family, food, and fun. And my family would get together, we'd have, I don't know, 20 people in the same room, and tables would be going around the room from one room into another, and we'd all sit down and enjoy an incredible amalgamation of the most delicious food that I love throughout the year. So it's something that I really cherish, and that food especially is something that I look forward to every November when Thanksgiving rolls around. I want to ask Justin though something, because when I am having Thanksgiving dinner, there's something that's going on that I always need to watch. And unfortunately, during Thanksgiving dinner, I can't watch it because it's always on at the same time. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. So Justin, I know that you're a football fan. Do you watch football during Thanksgiving Day? And does it interrupt anything? Tell us about how that works out for you.
Thank you, Rob. I'm definitely a big football fan. And I as a Giants fan, am a Dallas Cowboy hater. So I root against the Cowboys every year. The Lions play as well. I don't hate them. I don't like them. I wish everybody lost. Unless the Giants play on Thanksgiving Day, on Thursday, I don't like it. I don't like any team except for the Giants. But I do enjoy football. I get together with my family. We are gregarious. We are rambunctious. We are loud. We are boastful. Growing up in Kansas, I was the only Giants fan in my area. No one else rooted for the Giants. It was the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Cowboys, the Cowgirls, but nobody liked the Giants. But Thanksgiving Day was that one day where everybody could enjoy good food, football, family, and fun. We can get together and eat macaroni and cheese and cornbread and collard greens and turkey and neck bones and pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie and just have a feast, because that's what it's about. Rob said it wrong, but kind of right. It's the four F's. It's family, fun, food, and football, because that's the American way. Football. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Justin. I'll have to remember that extra F. And all those things, all those foods that you mentioned, definitely foods that I love and have found little tweaks here and there to make some of those a little bit different, growing up in Buffalo and Western New York. Some things I found I could add to some of the foods that we had. One, cornbread, we never really had that. And I also thought, well, cornbread, throw a little bits of jalapeno in there, and that helps to spice things up a little bit. Also, if you make cranberry sauce, or you throw the cranberries in and stuff, throw a little hot, spicy jelly in there as well. And that can kind of put a little ting in there as well. So it's not my favorite. My favorite food for Thanksgiving is acorn squash. And I don't know if any of you have tried that, but fantastic. Throw a little brown sugar on it, some butter in there, bake it. Fantastic. If you haven't tried it, look up a recipe, do it, or come to me for a recipe. What I want to know though is, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food and why? Why more so than some of the others? And this question goes to Madeline.
Thanks, Rob. This is a good question, and it's a bit difficult to answer this year, so I'll give it a shot. I recently went vegan, and so most of the typical Thanksgiving foods are out for me. And I've actually been plotting my how I will do next week, and I think it will involve me bringing my own meal that is fully vegan because no one is going to make anything vegan because my whole family is from Texas and I don't expect them to, and that's okay. So, that being said, I have one of my favorite vegan restaurants close by, and they're doing a whole Thanksgiving meal because when you're vegan and you're not that great at cooking, I mean, they're my best friend basically. So, I'll be visiting them, going to be buying a lot, and then bringing that to my Thanksgiving next weekend to share. That is a roundabout way of answering. Pre-vegan, I would say my favorite would be pumpkin bread that my mom made, green bean casserole, which may not be everyone's favorite. I feel like casseroles are typically just put together with a bunch of stuff you have left over in the first place, but I really enjoy them. Sweet potato pies, these were all my pre-vegan things. I think my post-vegan, you can actually make a lot of things vegan you wouldn't suspect. So I make a really good vegan pumpkin bread, banana bread. That's my favorite thing thus far. I'll circle back after Thanksgiving, let you guys know. Also just want to say my whole family is very gregarious, and so they're not mean about it. They know that I'm vegan and they're very accepting of it. That being said, I understand that it's a very high maintenance diet, and so I bring my own food.
Thank you very much, Madeline. I totally get it. I had a couple of cousins as I was growing up that decided that they were going to become vegan, and it was maybe it was vegan, maybe it was vegetarian. I don't know. I may not even be able to describe the difference, but I know that they used to bring their own tofu at that point. It was a while ago, probably not as many options as there are now for them, but they would bring that themselves because they knew that it wasn't going to be easy for other people to create dishes that were going to satisfy what they needed for their diet. And I also understand what you were saying about not particularly liking certain foods. One food that I will not touch is spinach casserole, and it is invariably at the table. You may ask me to pass it. I may ask somebody else to pass it along. I want to ask Mr. Mark Schroeder, is there a food that you will not touch? And tell us why.
Is there a food I won't touch and why? I think there definitely is, and I think you actually hit on some of them. Squash, not a fan. I don't know what there is about squash that it just doesn't work for me. I can handle things like Brussels sprouts, and I can handle a lot of the foods that other people won't. Oh, pumpkin pie. No, mincemeat pie. Mincemeat pie. I would do pumpkin before I do mincemeat. So those are probably two that would be on my list. If I had to speak gregariously about things that I don't like, it would be mincemeat pie and anything with squash. Zucchini, I'm okay on, and I'm not really sure even what the difference is between a squash and a zucchini other than the color, but I'm okay with the zucchini, and I'm just not so good with squash. So those are my dislikes. I also did, I think I heard one of my favorite likes get mentioned too, and I'm going to give it a plug. Probably my favorite during the holidays, during at least the Thanksgiving holidays, is pecan pie, because I don't get pecan pie otherwise. It's just way too sugary. I can't justify it at other times of the year, but I will justify it during Thanksgiving. And yes, I actually call it pecan, even though I'm from Texas. It's not pecan pie, it's pecan. Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you very much, Mark. And you are right. It's not pecan pie, although all of my family, they're from up north. They want to call it pecan pie. And all the people that I know from Louisiana, they say, no, it's pecan. Just like everybody wants to say New Orleans. And no, it's not that. Or New Orleans, and it's not that. So I totally get that. But you mentioned pies and mincemeat. Yeah, I won't get near that. I'll tell you what, my father, because everybody would gobble up everything. At some point when I was a kid, he decided, I'm going to have rhubarb pie and these kids won't touch it. These kids won't touch it. And we didn't, because it just sounded weird. But as we grew older, we kind of learned what it was and tasted it and liked it. Dessert is a big thing with my family. We have tons and tons of pies. I would say I'm going to go home to this Thanksgiving and there's going to be probably 9-10 pies from my house, other households that are coming in. So you will always have your share and your pick of pretty much everything. And probably not a mincemeat though, although I do have one family member that loves it. I want to ask, favorite dessert and why? Maybe favorite dessert that's part of Thanksgiving or perhaps something else. And this one goes to Mr. John Vessels.
Thank you, Rob. For the record, I'm not vegan, but I have a friend that is, and I made her a vegan cheesecake for our Christmas party one year, and she really loved it. And I made a regular cheesecake for the rest of us. Hers was smaller, mine hers was bigger. But anyway, no, it was really good. I even liked it, you know. Oh, favorite dessert. Well, I've kind of come around to bed. I rarely eat sweets anymore because of my medical conditions. I don't eat sugars a lot. But if I'm going to eat any dessert, it's any dessert. I mean, I like pecan pie, I like pumpkin pie, I like sweet potato pie, I like mincemeat pie. Okay, there's no meat in it, people, just so you know. It's raisins and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. It's all fruits. But it's good. I like it. I think it's all right. I mean, it's not one of the ones I'm going to be gregarious about. Ooh, let's go have mincemeat. It's like, but if it's there, I might have a piece. Cakes. And cakes are iffy to me. It's like they're just a lot. You know, they're okay. I like the icing better than just the cake itself. Brownies are good. Brownies can be really good. And I found some sugar-free cakes that are pretty good, and I found some sugar-free brownies that are pretty decent. And so there's not anything. I mean, if it's a dessert, I'm tempted to eat it, and probably I like it. I haven't found any dessert that was so awful I couldn't have at least one piece. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, John. Yes, it definitely will affect your glucose levels. So you have to be careful, especially if your body is sensitive to that stuff. And more of us, that's the case. So I understand that. And I'm one, though, to definitely sample all those pies that I mentioned earlier. If I have to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, that's my way. And I'll get up at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'll have a little bit more pie and a little bit more pie. So it's definitely not anything that I shy away from. That's going to end it for our table topics for this evening. I want to ask our timer, did all of our contestants qualify on time?
All of our contestants qualified, and all of our contestants used the word of the day.
Excellent. Wonderful. So you can vote, send a private chat to John Vessels. And our contestants were Justin, who talked about Thanksgiving and the 4 Fs now, including football, and Madeline, who talked about her favorite food and the fact that she really has to move in a different direction because she's made a choice, but she's going to let us know what her new favorite food is at Thanksgiving. And then Mark, who told us a couple of things that he, won't necessarily eat, and that's squash, among other things, mincemeat pie. And John finally told us that not as much of a sweets eater at this point, partly because of the glucose, but he will be tempted by it, it sounds like. So those are our 4 contestants. Please go ahead and send a private chat again to John Vessels as vote counter. And I will pass the meeting over to, unless Mr. Toastmaster, do you have anything more to add, or can I pass it to our general evaluator?
I have nothing else to add, Rob. Pass it to our general evaluator.
Okay. And guess what? Our general evaluator is our vote counter. That's Mr. John Vessels. John, will you take it away, please?
I will take it away from you. So I thought tonight's meeting went very, very well so far. And now you're stuck with me. But, well, and Lee just signed off for a second, so I guess I won't put the evaluator on quite yet. So there he is. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with our evaluator for tonight. And that's going to be Lee King. So Lee, will you give us your evaluation of Mark, please, sir?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests.
All right, well, let's go back to me. So it's a big food night, and that's just awful. Put the fat man here and getting me all tempted. I'm gonna have to have a snack after Toastmasters now. But anyway, I'll take my pill. I've already taken my shot. So now we're gonna go back. Lee's back available. So let's go back to our evaluation for tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Mark. We don't have any guests here this evening. It was a pleasure to have the opportunity to evaluate your speech for this evening. I will give you a few things that I thought you did well, a couple of things to consider in the future, and then finally one thing that you did really well in your speech. First, your objectives were to use vivid language, which you did. We can definitely have a better understanding of how to get two cats into one room after hearing your speech. You used very good vivid imagery. You also made good use of body language. You emphasized some important points. You were very energetic throughout the speech. I think that everybody was able to get engaged quickly, stay engaged. And your topic is something that is of interest to a lot of people, which really made for a very well-rounded speech. A couple of things that you might want to consider. One is using a little more, maybe a few technical terms as far as animal behavior, what some of the different things that you were telling us about, use those words, some of those more technical words, just makes your speech sound a little more on the professional side, because you really, I could know this topic very well. You're certainly not the novice for this. The other thing that I would suggest is to perhaps try to intertwine some PowerPoint with your talk as well. So as you're giving us some of these different images of what we should be looking for, what we want to stay away from, etc. Perhaps if you could toggle between you and PowerPoint or do like a split screen, that would be really good for this type of speech, because not only are you giving us the verbal visual imagery, but you're also actually giving us the image. And as they say, picture is worth 1,000 words. Finally, I thought that you gave a very good, interesting speech. You kept it engaging, you kept it interesting to everybody. You hit all of the highlights. So overall, great speech tonight. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lee. Let's do a little quick business here. Mark, did Lee qualify on time?
Yes, he qualified at 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
All right, thank you, Mark. Yeah, Mark. So anybody, if you'd like to send a comment to Lee about how you thought he did his evaluation tonight, please feel free to chat with him directly. And now let's move on to the rest of our evaluation portion of the meeting. A few more comments. I mean, the theme itself, it's just right on track. Everybody can relate to it. I mean, there's not a single person here that hasn't something about Thanksgiving and can't really have, I mean, it's not controversial, you know? So there's nobody that could have been offended by Thanksgiving, except if I serve cream spinach to Rob. And but oh well, and mincemeat pie to Mark Schroeder. And so anyway, good theme. And you know, time of the year for it. We won't be around next week. Of course, we'll be off on our visiting our families and sleeping through football games because most of the time we have Thanksgiving dinner at lunch. So by the time football game starts, all the tryptophans kicked in and everybody's sleeping on the sofa, the recliner, everything, every place else, and nobody actually sees much of the game. Except for my sister Rose, who will scream every time something happens, and then it keeps waking us up, and it's like, hush. Anyway, but thankful for her too. Now, I'd like to go ahead and do our duty holders for tonight. And one of our duty holders is, we've only got three. No, we do have three. Okay. But we have two doing double duty. I can read lips. I watched Japanese movies a long time. Now, Mr. Sims, you are our grammarian. So will you go ahead and give us your grammarian report, sir?
Yes, I will. In addition to all the table topics contestants using the word of the day, also Madeline and Rob used it during the course of the evening. And during the table topics, during this speech, and during the Toastmasters introduction, I heard a few interesting phrases, a few very good words that maybe you don't use every day. Justin used the word domesticated in relation to turkeys. And one thing he didn't do, which went through my mind, was when he had the foods listed, there's potato and tomato. Thought of the old song, you say potato, I say potato, you say tomato, I say tomato, etc. But hey, opportunity missed, but hey man, you were doing your best. And thank you, Justin. Dressing versus stuffing. I've never known which one is right, but they're both right. So I'm all good. And I have sometimes used them interchangeably. So even though I'm a proud native Texan, I haven't always just focused or only used the word dressing. In Mark's speech, he used a few interesting phrases, again, relating specifically to cats. The cat whisperer, the base camp for cats, which you don't hear about every day, scent sharing and site swapping, interesting. Although he explained it very well, makes sense. Rob made reference to an amalgamation of food, not just a big table full, but an amalgamation. Justin used the word rambunctious, which is a very useful word to use, as opposed to wild. Madeline had the most interesting word. It wasn't a word, but she put a heart on the screen to thank John for his comments during his table topics, talking about food. And then, not to be outdone, John Vessels, I guess for 1 second was maybe trying to think of something to say, and he said doody-doo, and then went back to his table topics response. And that is my report, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. I didn't remember saying doody-doo, but okay. Oh, I'm adding that to my grammar. Anyway, our counter tonight was Madeline. So Madeline, will you tell us about what you heard and our ahs and ums and everything? Hopefully none.
Yes, there's one. I heard not very many tonight though. I heard, Justin, you said one and then Rob, I caught one so, Mark Schroeder caught one so, Lee, one so, Mark, one The bulk of it was me. I hear it as it's coming out, caught a few so's, couple ums on my end. So everyone did really good.
Thank you, Madeline. Now, our last duty holder for the evening is Rob Giles, and he was our posture monitor. And so, were we sitting upright and behaving ourselves, Rob?
Mr. General Evaluator. What I saw was all good. I didn't see anything that was distracting. I didn't see anything that detracted from what we were trying to say. I will say this, across the board, I saw smiles. And I first noticed it with Mark in his speech when he was talking about his title. A smile came across his face. And I think that set the tone, because from there on, everybody was smiling and we had a lot of good times. And I think that propagated that, and that smile enhances everything. It enhances what you're presenting. It enhances the environment. So I appreciated that. I did see some good gestures in Mark Schroeder's speech. A few of them that I want to mention is that he talked about raising the curtain up. He also talked about moving them way apart and used his hands for that, and then moving them back together. So he had a lot of gestures that accompanied and enhanced what he was saying. And I think he did a great job with that. It wasn't overdone. And I think it was great considering the fact that we're in a virtual setting and you have to have your hands up for those gestures. So good job, Mark. Overall, we did a great job. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. Well, how can we all not be smiling? We're talking about Thanksgiving. All of us are off work. We got food, we got family, you got football, if that's your thing, and friends, and what's to be down on? You know, hey, we're going to be cheery because actually next week we've got all this coming. Hopefully. I don't know a lot of people that some people may be alone on Thanksgiving. I've been alone on Thanksgiving and had to make all that food all by myself. And it's like, by the time I get that meal cooked, I can't eat any of it because I've been nibbling on it the whole time to see if it was right. Then it's like, oh, wow, now I got all this food. But hey, that's life. Okay, but tonight, good table topics, of course, right on subject. Easy questions. I mean, everybody's got an opinion of what their favorite Thanksgiving food is, what their worst Thanksgiving food is. Luckily, you didn't ask about for any negative Thanksgiving stories, and we didn't get any big family drama coming up, you know, at the Thanksgiving dinner or something, because, you know, it's been known to happen. So good. Stayed there in benign territory. And here you go, Mark. I'm going to have to make you do another grammarian because we had a cornucopia of big words today. There's 2 points for me. Anyway, all in all, I think we had a really good meeting and everything ran really well. And everybody did a very good job. So now I'd like to do vote on who we thought did the best job as the big three. And our big three tonight is Justin Faust as our Toastmaster, Rob Giles as our table topic master, or myself as general evaluator. And so we would take a moment, send me a vote. All right, no, send it to me. Okay. And now we're going to move on to the business portion of our meeting and our president, Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Thanks for joining us. I don't have a lot of announcements, but I will share one Thanksgiving story just because it's a little funny. I'll never forget the first Thanksgiving that I was dating my wife, and I met her family for Thanksgiving dinner, and her uncle, a very outgoing, funny man, introduced himself to me, and hi, how are you? We're just getting to know each other. One of my now nephews and nieces came up to us and was showing us this dog, and the my wife's uncle said, "Oh yes, very, very nice dog. Very nice dog. What's its name? Den Den?" Oh, I forgot to tell you, my wife and in-laws are all Vietnamese, so we did not have the dog for dinner. We had turkey and a pig instead. You know, in the Vietnamese culture, the pork Pig is the big. But I guess for some people, cats and dogs work as well. So, anyway, I'll just never forget that. But anyway, as far as announcements, I really don't have any. We will continue virtual, not this week, not next week, obviously, starting the week after that. And we'll have about 3 weeks for the week of Christmas and the week of Thanksgiving. We will decide at that point if we're going to do any socials, either of those 2 weeks, either or both of those 2 weeks. And other than that, just have a happy Thanksgiving. I will send out an email asking for an officers meeting probably next Sunday after Thanksgiving are available. With that, let's go ahead and get the vote counters report.
All right, thank you. So again, we just had 2 contests tonight. Our best speaker is obviously Mark Schroeder. Our best evaluator is Lee King. And for the best table topics, it's Madeline. Yay. And the best of the big 3 goes to Justin. And that's all from me. Back to you, Lee.
All right, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
All right, I'll stop the meeting here in just a second. But before I do, I'm a little disappointed that Justin didn't cover in during his history, the true history of Thanksgiving, which of course is, yes, it is about the Pilgrims and the Indians and Native Americans at this point. But they got together and they were trying to work out the date that they were going to have their dinner. And they were originally suggesting Friday. And ultimately, they really wanted to do Friday because Friday was the big day that the Native Americans had pizza and beer. You know, every Friday was a pizza and beer day, but the Pilgrims were just not available. They had something else on the calendar. So they said, well, what about Thursday? And said, well, we can do Thursday, but we just have turkey. And the rest is history. With that, I will go ahead and close the meeting in 3, 2, 1.